welcome to the Gig Boss Podcast. We've got Cameron Kinghorn on the show today. Cameron is a vocalist, multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, and composer. He's one half of King Pari, an indie band with funk and soul influences. King Pari boasts more than 54,000 monthly listeners on Spotify and recently finished opening for Dessa on a run of shows, and they have a tour now coming up, right? March, April, May?
Yep.
Woo! Cameron was also the lead singer of Nookie Jones, a popular neo-soul group out of Minneapolis, of which I was also a member. He plays with or has played trumpet in a number of bands, including Black Market Brass, a potent Afrobeat group. He's played trumpet in my orchestra as well, was featured vocalist and collaborator alongside Toki Wright on a piece called Our Death Under Your Pillow that came out on my Magnificent Madness album. And if we bring it way, way back, Cameron and I were both students at the University of Minnesota in the late 2000s, early 2010s. I'm so pumped to hear his perspective on navigating the new music economy, his recent move to LA, and to learn more about all the great things he has going with King Pari. Please welcome to the podcast, Cameron Kinghorn.
Whoop, whoop. Hey, thanks for having me, Adam.
Yeah, hey, thanks for being here.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going on? What's this? Tell me about the space that you're in. You have like a place where you record vocals and other stuff?
Yeah, yep. So this is it's my studio. You know? Yeah, that is what it is.
Nice.
This is where I record a lot of the vocals for King Pari stuff. I've done some trumpet stuff in here too. And then I do like all of my teaching out of here as well.
Wow, cool.
And you can't see it, but it's like studio, bedroom. So it's all kind of right here. But when we first got here, we were trying to, my partner Ella and I were trying to figure out the right setup, because basically like this is like the garage of the house, and then there's a unit kind of below the main part, so that's all connected. Mm-hmm. So that's our unit, and then there's like an upstairs as well. And so we were just trying to figure out like how can we use this space best. And the garage sounded terrible. Like if you clap, there's so many reflections. It was awful. And I was like, oh, well, this is like the best space for me to set up, but it sounds terrible. So I purchased a ton of moving blankets. So that's what's like
hanging
on
up
the walls everywhere. And on the ceiling.
Yeah.
And then I created like, you can't really see it, but this is like you could maybe hear that, but it's
I heard it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a curtain, so I can shut this.
Cool.
And so it turns this into basically like a booth, like a sound booth.
Nice.
And it sounds pretty good. So yeah.
That's great.
Anyway, that's where I'm at. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. So you're sharing the house with a bunch of other people? You're renting with other people as well?
Yeah. So we rent with so Joe, who's the other half of King Pari, and then our really good friend Josh Holmgren used to live here, but Josh is tour managing for Dessa.
Oh, cool.
Or sorry, so he's not tour managing. He's music directing for Dessa.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yep. And so he's been on the road. He basically hasn't lived here for like 6 months, and then he just moved out on Monday, which was sad. But
yeah.
But yeah, we all moved out here together in November 2020.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
November of 2020.
Yeah.
So I guess I want to talk about this at some point. But how did the tours with Dessa go? That you did 3 shows with her, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Were you double dipping and like also playing in her band, or was it just King Pari opening?
So I sat in with her on a couple songs. I played trumpet on one and sang on another one. But it was mostly just King Pari opening. And so we played up in San Francisco, and then we played in Santa Cruz. So it was my first time. I'd never been to Santa Cruz before.
Yeah.
So we played in Santa Cruz, and then we played in LA as the last show of the tour. And yeah, it was awesome. It was super fun. There's like so much I could say about everything about that entire experience. And so much to say about like Dessa and her like work ethic, and also like I had a lot of thinking time kind of on the trip, but yeah, it was kind of a cool opportunity to like think about like what my relationship has been like with her, And I think part of it too is like I had some memory that came across probably Facebook, and I think it was like from 5 or 6 years ago, and it was like the first orchestra show that I did with her, and then I was like, oh my god, it's been like 5 or 6 years since we first did that together, and since then there's been a ton, and obviously like the last couple of years have been unreal. But yeah, so anyway, I just had a lot of opportunity to kind of reflect on what kind of like our relationship and what it's meant, and like the way that she operates. Because like basically for me, it's like the way I think about it is like I met her through the New Standards.
Yep.
And which is an awesome trio based out of the Twin Cities that does these big holiday shows every year, which I've done now for the last 6 years again, like 6 or 7 years. And Dessa was a guest, and it was like the first year that they had me sing, because the first year I just played trumpet and they didn't know I was a vocalist.
Yeah.
And it's the second year I sang, and Dessa was a guest on the show, and she came up to me and was like, hey, like, I'm doing this thing with the Minnesota Orchestra, like, do you want to be a part of it? And I was like, what? Like, yeah. Also, like, nice to like meet you, I guess.
Nice,
whatever,
nice
you know?
to meet you. Yeah.
But yeah, since then it's just like, you know, I've had a chance. I obviously had an opportunity to work with a lot of different artists, and I really look up to her in a lot of ways, and especially like the way that she treats the people that she's around or the people she's working with.
Yeah.
And the way that she interacts, and like, it's essentially felt like our relationship has been like, hey, can you do these really cool things? And if you can't, if you're not available to do something, or if something changes for you, that's totally cool. And Josh was mentioning that because she does a lot of like lectures and stuff, and like while they're on the road, and there's something that she had said about she has a philosophy that's like about like is if I'm asking someone to enter into something, is it mutually beneficial?
Yeah.
And I didn't know that that's like something that she like, you know, lives by or like tells other people.
Sure.
But like that's super obvious. Like in everything that she does, like it's like, you know, hey, can you do this? If not, that's totally cool. And like, you know, so like can you do the orchestra thing? Okay, cool. And then like from there, it's just like throwing opportunities, you know, like, hey, like, do you guys want to open for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just felt like it's like, you know, mutually beneficial, but also it's just like, you know, she didn't have to reach out to me in the first place, you know?
Sure. What's her musical process like when you're working with her, or like when you did the Minnesota Orchestra stuff? Was it collaborative with the background singers? Were parts pretty much there from recordings and you were learning parts? How did that stuff work?
Yeah, so that was there were parts. It wasn't so okay. The vocal arrangements were a combination of some stuff that Dessa had done and then stuff that Abby Wolf did.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I mean, I would say it was collaborative in the sense of like, again, like, you know, coming to the table like, hey, here's the parts, like, you know, open to feedback.
Right. You feel comfortable enough to speak up if there's something that you feel strongly about.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it's like, it's basically, there's just like this mutual respect of like, she asked me or whoever else, you know, Ashley DeBose or Matthew Santos, to be a part of it for a reason, because she respects our opinion.
Yeah.
And respects us as musicians. So it goes beyond like, hey, just do the part, you know, it's always checking in. Like, is this okay? Is it, you know, is there anything that needs to be changed? Like, what are you hearing? Do you think this, you know, what's your opinion? Do you think it should be different? Yeah, so that's kind of how the process was. And it's interesting because, again, I have so much that I could say about all of this. About Dessa's arrangements, about Abby Wolf's arrangements. And the interesting thing is they, neither of them reads music.
Yeah.
Abby, I guess I don't know Dessa's musical background, like, like through high school as much, but I know that Abby, was a percussionist through high school. And so she used to read music, and just like hasn't had to for years. And so doesn't really have the, like the quick recall with it.
Right.
But so she has her own, both of them. And I think kind of they use sort of a similar notation style, that is like on the lyric sheet, and it like is shapes, like melodic shapes, essentially. Cool. And like color coded. So like, like if like I might be blue and you might be red or whatever, like,
yep.
And then like they move together, and then it shows like, if there's like this part goes up, then the part goes up. It's really cool to see, how they do that. But I always notate all of my parts, which they think they get a big kick out of it. Cause they're
Sure.
like I just have like my entire book of all of Dessa's stuff or all of Abby's stuff. Like it's all notated. And
Wow.
so they like to look at it and be like, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing. Cool. Yeah. So anyway, it's like mostly they do the parts. And then it'll be like this notation way that they have with the lyrics, like on the lyric sheet. And then they also send references that are super clear. So it's like they both do it the same way. It'll be like, I have my part, like one of the parts where it's like my part's super loud at the middle.
Yep.
And then like everything else is quiet. And then there's like each person has their own that's like that.
Yep.
And then like they'll even duck the audio, like
Yep.
when your entrance is coming up, right? Like they'll duck the background audio.
Yeah.
So you can
Youngblood
really-
does stuff like that too. There's
Oh,
some
nice.
MIDI stuff where it's like your part's louder than everybody else.
Yeah, yep. And then they like pan, like when it's like all the parts are in there, it'll be like, so usually be like Matthew and I to the right and Abby and Ashley to the left.
Yeah.
So super clear, like everything that you need to learn the parts.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what do you guys, when you're opening for any band really, but like on these tours, on these shows, are you being intentional about trying to turn Dessa fans into King Pari fans, apart from like obviously putting on a great show is a huge part of that. But is there anything that you're doing, like collecting emails, like suggesting people find you on a certain platform? Are you trying to build on a certain platform in particular, or is it just like we just got to go out and play some great shows and people will like us and that's what it is?
I feel like there's a little bit of both. It's tough, man. It's like, it's funny. I feel like Joe and I are both kind of like, like the label, like every time the label mentions like TikTok, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm like losing my mind. Like, but I get it. I get it. It's
Go where the people are, right? I mean, that's what musicians have always done. It's like go where the people are, and if the people are on TikTok, I don't use TikTok a lot, but I did join it not long ago just to be like, okay, it was like a year ago. It was December 2020. I was like, what's going on with this thing?
Yeah, well, and I avoided it forever because I was like, I don't want anything to do with this. And then I got on it, and then I was like, okay, this actually is kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
Like it's so massive, and then it's like just such a huge, like it's like there's so much information that's shared through it in like a pretty creative way,
Yeah, I think it's cool. I actually enjoyed sifting through it when I first joined. After I tricked the algorithm to stop showing me things that are like totally inappropriate. They're like at first it's just like inappropriate. And I'm like, God, I can't look at this. Like I can't be around my students and pull up TikTok. Like if this stuff comes up. But yeah, I mean the duet feature, so cool, man. Just to be able to grab somebody's video and play along. Like I was doing that a bunch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. But anyway, yeah, to answer your question about like the overall, like, I feel like for us, and we've talked about it, it's like, it's, as far as like the live thing goes, it's like more important to us that like people see it and want to see it again.
Yeah.
That's like the most important thing. As far as like, you know, like during the show, or whatever, like I don't usually do a lot of like trying to direct people to specific social media stuff.
Yep.
And I feel like, okay, so like the show, making sure the show is the thing, is hugely important for both of us, and we both have like a lot of experience previously, you know, like through Nookie Jones and through Foe, of having projects that were like very invested in the live thing.
Yep.
And so for both of us, it's really important, and it's also like there's a little bit of a shift, and it's interesting because like we can do the show as a duo, which we did for this run, or we can do it with a band, and
Sure, yeah.
we've done both, and I feel like there's benefits to both. Like both of them can benefit, but to us it's like important that like if someone sees the band, you know, like because both of us, like live drums, you know, it's hard to replace live drums.
Yeah, totally.
But we want to do the duo thing in a way so that people hear it, because like we're using drum machine, so it's like, okay, like how can we make the drum machine feel, you know, full enough, or feel like you're not missing something because you don't have live drums. And yeah, so yeah, I feel like the live show, making sure that people come out, has been the most important. And then for us, like most of our social media interaction has been through Instagram. Mm-hmm. We both kind of gave up on Facebook. Yeah. Like during the pandemic, like personally I did, you know, outside of like occasionally posting about music stuff, or during like the uprising in Minneapolis, it was kind of an important time to be on there to communicate things. But yeah, otherwise it's just kind of fell out. I don't know. Like I feel like part of it was like Instagram started to take off a little bit for us because we did an ad early on.
I have a question about that. I have a question about this ad on my list of questions because we talked about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, and I don't know, you know, obviously this is for the podcast. I don't know how much I've told you about it, but basically, so King Pari had like no listeners, you know, under 1,000 for sure. Like,
yeah,
hardly any at all. We put out one song, Sunshine, summer 2019. No
Which
one had
now
really
has
heard it.
1.3 million streams on Spotify. Not to spoiler alert everything you're about to say, but
no, it's which again, all of this stuff, I'm so stoked that we're talking because I have so much to say about all of it. But we had like no listenership, and our first, you know, we played 3 shows. Our first show was opening for Kamasi Washington in the main room.
Whoa.
Which just a quick thing about that was
I was
basically
gonna say,
like,
how does that happen?
Yeah, so we sent I think it was James, one of the people at First Ave. We sent them the Sunshine music video, and we're just like, hey, we just put this song out. This is a new project. We just want to let you know that this exists. Like, this is like going to be a thing that both of us are going to start doing.
Wow.
And like, if you have anyone that, you know, that it would be a good fit for us to open up for, like, let us know. And we, you know, both of us individually had good relationships with the club and with the bookers there through previous projects and like whatever. And so we sent that email, and then they checked it out like, oh, this is awesome. Like, super into it. We'll let you know. And then like a couple days later, they were like, hey, do you guys want to open for Kamasi Washington in like a week? In like a week. And it's like,
how many songs did you have at that time?
We had 3 songs.
Wow.
Done that we could perform. We had put out 1 song, and we didn't have a band.
Yeah.
We didn't have a band. It was just Joe and me. And so we were like...
So, of course, you said yes.
Yeah, I was like, we can't say no to this. And so we ended up doing like he had this band called Duffel.
Yeah.
And they played for like 15 minutes, and then we went up. Then I came and joined them for like 3 King Pari songs.
Okay. Cool.
Which turned out, and it was super fun. So it's funny, that was our first show. Then we played a couple of 7th Street entry shows, the second of which was on like March 7th or something of 2020.
Yeah.
So that was the last thing I did before everything shut down.
You sold that out, right? Did you sell that out?
Yeah, it was a sold out show. We opened for this, I don't remember what they were called. Oh yeah, I can't, it was like a brass band.
Oh, okay.
Maybe Lucky Chops or something.
Oh yeah, Lucky Chops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's like, so we'd played 3 shows total, right? It's like other projects, like years and years of stuff. We played 3 total shows, and then the pandemic happened. So then it was like, and then we're working on this album, and we're both super stoked about the music, and then the pandemic happened. So it's like a huge like wind out of your sails. So
yeah. And I don't want to completely blow by that you sent a random email to a club and then got offered an opening spot for Kamasi, Washington. So for our listeners who I imagine will be like budding professionals, young musicians, cultivating those club relationships is huge, right? Like that. I mean, you sent an email and you had a relationship already. So, proving that you're a reliable human, that you're able to bring in an audience when you put on a show, and then continuing to cultivate those relationships can lead to pretty ridiculous opportunities, even when you've just started a new project and haven't even played a show yet.
Yeah. I mean, it's like years. It took years of trust building.
Yeah.
To be able to get to the point. Yeah, it's like if King Pari was just a new project, and we didn't have that established with the club, like,
that doesn't happen.
Even if they were into, they might have been like, "Oh, this is cool." They definitely would not have asked us to open for Kamasi, Washington. There's no way. Like, so yeah, I think that's hugely important. Like, in that, not only for the project, but like individually as a musician, like. I think about this all the time. I was just having a conversation with someone about this recently, but like how, like the way that you carry yourself, your reputation. Same with like, again, like talking about with Dessa, right? It's like, so she asked me to be a part of it. And I feel like probably, I'm sure a lot of that had to do with like, I had been working with Abby already for like a year.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she talked to Abby and Abby was probably like, hey, like, yes, you should ask him to do this, Right. Like, it's the relationships. It's so important.
Yep.
Huge. Like that's most, so much of what this whole thing is establishing these relationships and then like, making sure you're reliable.
Yeah.
And that people talk about that and want like, they
with everybody you work with, right? It's like with everybody you work with, because you never know what kind of opportunity can come up. I hear so many people telling, now that I've been talking to so many artists on the podcast, it's like I hear so many stories about I met this person and then 8 years later they're the reason why I got the gig with so and so, And it's like they hadn't talked in 8 years, but it was like that person was on the back of their mind because they had this one great experience with them, and man, that's it takes time for your relationships to kind of blossom as well. It takes time for people's careers to develop, and so you can stay in the game and you can have positive relationships with people. It's like you can make some shit happen.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it can take it can take years, but it's important. I think it's super important that like consistently that you are considering that, because there's a lot of talented people. Some of which have a harder time, whether or not, they're, they might not be not nice, they might be super friendly. They just have a hard time with the relationship side to the, then there's also people that are, some of the coolest things I've done have there's like people that you work with and you're just like, yeah, never again. Like, or it's like supposed to be the coolest thing, and it's like,
sure.
Nope.
Interesting. Do
Like,
you want to shout anybody out in that context?
I do not.
Nope.
Not.
Come
today.
on, Cameron.
Yeah. But and it's just like super important. And it's something I think about all the time, because it's like, again, like, people that, like someone like Dessa, where it's like, I have now performed on stage with the Minnesota Orchestra and Dessa 4 times, and I'm on an album that's pressed to vinyl that's with the Minnesota Orchestra. It's like
incredible.
And it like couldn't have been cooler people, and like really the beautiful people that lift each other up, and like that's all that's important.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have you can operate, you can choose to operate like that, or you can choose to not. And like there are successful people that do it both ways, but like if you want, like, if you care about other people first, and then also if you care about what people think about you at all, it's like,
which is a double-edged sword. That could be a double-edged sword, caring about what other people think.
Oh, totally. Yeah, which you have to be careful about, because caring too much can also,
could lead to self-doubt, right? Imposter syndrome, all kinds of stuff that artists, lots of artists deal with.
Anyway, super quick to get to the Instagram thing. Yeah. I think this will be important because this is something, like, there are things that have happened through King Pari that it's like, I didn't even know. I didn't even know that was a thing that could happen. Yeah. So, I was sitting probably in my early pandemic, mid-May, like, I don't know what's going on. Everything's canceled. I have this new previous project that is ending, like, weirdness. And I remember I was just sitting and I was like, we've never done an Instagram ad for King Pari. And I was like, I don't know. Here's like one of our posts that was like, I think it was specific, just about like Sunshine, like the music video.
Yep.
And it's a clip of the outro of the music video, like the whole outro. So it's like a minute long. And I was like, I don't know. Why don't I throw like $30 behind this? Why not? Like, I don't know. And I was like, what should I put in the as the targeted audience or whatever, like the demographics and all that? Like, I don't know. Tascam, rolling papers, like animated cartoons, lo-fi music. I don't know. It was like, I think I chose like maybe like 6 to 10 things that were just like, and literally it was like, I didn't spend a bunch of time researching, whatever, nothing. I was just like, I don't know. Plugged it in. Immediately, we started getting tons of followers, and like not fake ones, like legitimate. Yeah. And then like also tons of people started commenting on the video, like tons. And I was like, what is going on? And then our Spotify listens started going up. Yep. And I was like, what? And this is like literally like all like did the ad, and then like it started doing well, so then we started feeding it more, and then like we started to see like our Instagram numbers go up, and Spotify started to go up. Wow. And then through that, we started having people hit us up, like labels.
No shit.
We're reaching out. They were like, hey. So like the first one was this dude in Berlin who was like, hey, I'm starting a record label. He used to work for, there's this playlist through Spotify. It's called Majestic Casual. And I think that they maybe have like a bigger reach outside of Spotify, but he was like, yeah, I used to work for them, but I want to start my own label. And he was like, yeah, basically like I want you guys to like be the thing that kind of makes the label a cool thing. Like I want you guys to be the first thing on it. Wow. Whoa, okay. Some random guy from Berlin. That's cool. Yep. And anyway, so he used to work for Majestic Casual, and I don't know if we ever confirmed this through him, but this has to be. Like, we got on the Majestic Casual playlist.
Oh.
which has like 500,000 followers or something.
So you ended up going with him, his new record label?
No.
Okay.
No. So this is all,
Wow.
again, this is all stuff.
Because I was gonna say, I was gonna ask about how you, because you shopped that, right? You sat on the record, right, for a long time, and I remember you saying like, I'm so excited about this music, and it feels weird to sit on it. Like you were shopping it around to labels and stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, because we finished it before the pandemic, I think, or maybe like just during, like partway into the pandemic is when we finished it, but we had most of it done.
Yeah.
And anyway, so he was the first one to reach out, and we were like, okay, like this seems super cool. And then he got us on the playlist. So then that instantly rocketed our plays up. So now all of a sudden we're getting like, we went from having like under 1,000 total plays to having thousands of plays a day on the song. And
It's a badass song, by the way.
hey,
Woo!
thank you. I like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so all of a sudden it's like our plays rocketed up. And then like in conjunction with that, also like our Instagram followers were going up too. And yeah, so basically the way that everything shook out with that label was like initially, so like right away he was like, yeah, this is awesome. Great. Like, cool. Awesome. And then as we got to talking more, it was like there were some things that he like wanted to like, it's like, for example, like the songs, like how they sounded. He was like, hey, like, can we kind of like remix some of these? And Joe and I, yeah, we were like, no.
Yeah.
Like, this is how we want it to sound. And it was funny because, and again, this dude is a super nice guy. So it's like, you know, no hard feelings at all. But it was interesting. It's like, we got on this Majestic Casual playlist, and like every song on that playlist sounds the same. You know what I mean? Like it's all like very similar, like kind of like not lo-fi, like some stuff that like it's trying to sound lo-fi but isn't. Like it has like a very wide range in the sound, you know. It's like
Yeah.
and like a lot of low end, you know, like this kind of like pop, like a lot of like new pop, but it's not like radio pop kind of. Anyway, but so it's like you're hearing like all these songs. I remember the first time I checked out the playlist, I was like, huh, because it's like not music that I'm into, and I'm like, huh. And then all of a sudden our song came on, and I was like, whoa, like it's like super mono, and like like Joe, like the instrumental is like a little bit left to center, like for the whole song until the outro. Like, and again, like this is like the thing that I've done that is like by far the most listened to. Like nothing comes close, right? Like over 1 million plays, and like all these weird, like the song, like literally Joe and I talk all the time. It's like this song never should have been made. Like, like it doesn't make sense at all that it came together. Like literally, like the instrumental is like on a loop pedal. Like there's no stems. Like he looped it, and then like I remember watching him like doing punches, and it was like if he messes up the punch, like he has to rebuild the whole loop. Like it's like,
oh my god,
none of it made any sense. And we're on this playlist where it's like all this like kind of expensive sounding music, and then all of a sudden our song comes up, and it's like no other song sounds like it, and I'm like, that's tight. That's exactly what I want. Like I want people, like the people who like that are going to be like, this is what I want to be listening to.
Yep.
And the people who don't, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I don't need them. Like, I want people who want to be listening to my music to listen to my music. And so, anyway, so this all started happening. And then, so he was like, this label guy was like, yeah, like, you know, we're wondering if we can make some changes, whatever. And so we were like, absolutely not. Like, no. And so then the guy was like, all right, like, honestly, like, you got, like, because we were in a position, it was like, we had all the assets, like, everything's done. Like, we have music videos, we have the
you're
look,
ready to go.
everything's done.
Yep.
And he was like, you know, like, you guys are in a position, like we want to be able to like develop artists, and you guys are in a position that's like you know what you want, and like basically he was like you guys should go with something that's like more established, because like it just doesn't like it was starting to not make sense for us to work together.
Yeah.
And what that took, is like, and I obviously like this isn't my first project, so it's not like, and I'm coming at this from a place of like I've had years of experience with projects, and I'm in a position now where I'm like I said earlier, like if you like what I'm doing, awesome.
Yeah.
If you don't, that's okay. And like I like what I'm doing. And so to me,
I was going to say that's also because you making this move to King Pari was intentionally about you finding yourself, right, as an artist, and like doing the music that you really wanted to create. So then it's like that's an extra, like, I don't care if you don't like it, this is what I need to do, right?
Yeah, totally. But it took years. I mean, it took me years to get to that place.
Yeah.
And like years of like feeling uncomfortable about certain things, and then being like writing it off though, which like seriously for the listeners, it's like figure that stuff out early. Like if you can figure that stuff out early on, like, and everything's a journey. And then when I think about it, then I'm like, well, like King Pari happened when it happened, and like it wouldn't have happened earlier.
Yeah.
Like for both of us. And like somehow it perfectly, like the timing somehow. So that, that is what it is. But it is something I think about a lot, is like figure out, like if you are trying to go into this thing to become an artist making original music, like spend time figuring out what that means. Like, and like, what does that look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? Right? Like, and what is it, and all these things, like for you,
Yeah.
Because if you're spending too much time doing, like trying to figure out like, what do other people want? And this is what we were talking about earlier, like caring too much about what other people think, or what they want, or what they like. And again, this is like coming from like, if you are trying to do something as an original artist, right?
Right.
Not if you're there to lift someone else up, if you're there to like collaborate, if you're there to like do something with someone else, right? That's a whole different thing.
Yep.
Like you have to be thinking about other people. But like if you are creating music, original music, like you are allowed that. Like that is what you are supposed to be doing, is creating something that is authentic and real to you. Right? And like, and again, like through the King Pari thing, like that, like I feel very strongly, it's like the song Sunshine, the reason why that song has done so well and why it's connected with people is because we created that thing like authentically and from like real experience, and also like we created it in a way that was like both of us doing music the way that both of us want to be doing music.
Yeah.
And I feel certain that that's why that song and the sound and like why the project, like why people are continuing, like you said, like we have whatever 50 something thousand monthly listeners right now, which is like, when I think about that, I'm like,
that's
so wild. Like, yeah, not like every time I like look at, and it's like, I'm in a position too. It's like, that's awesome. And also like, I want more. I want more people to be listening.
Sure.
But sometimes you gotta stop and be like, yeah, that's a lot of people to be listening to your music. Like that's, and then like if I log into Spotify Art for Artists or whatever, and it's like, whoa, there's like 30 people listening to my music right now or whatever, or like however many people it is at any moment. And it's like pretty cool. Like,
yeah.
And yeah, I've never had something that had this kind of listenership. And again, yeah, I feel very strongly that it has to do with like the way that we brought the music together and the two of us, like, it's like having fun. Like, it's like we're like in like the play place, and it's like we're very like, because we do everything ourselves, it's super DIY, right? So it's like,
Yep.
Again, like I record my vocals in this little thing here. I have my like 2 different Tascam mixers, and an interface, and yeah, it's all, I can take as much time as I want. I'm not in the studio. It's not like, I don't feel like I'm wasting money at any point. There's like zero pressure. I can go about this the way that I want, like 100%.
Yep. Yeah, that home studio thing is such a game changer for new artists to really be up on that, to be able to spend that time and not have to spend the money to be in a space, right? I mean, it's like, it's awesome to be in a studio too. I've always enjoyed that feeling, but it's, you know, having, for myself, like, and podcast listeners have heard me say this a whole bunch of times, but I just started learning how to use DAWs a handful of years ago, six years ago or so. And so that has just unlocked this whole new world where people can be like, here's a track, and you put horns on it. I'm like, bam, sure. And then they can deal with the mixing and everything, because that's not really my world, but I can make good sounds. I can record good sounds, capture them, bounce them, send them off. I mean, that's like unlocked a whole world of stuff for me that I couldn't have done unless I had a home setup.
Yep. Yeah, totally. And and that's, like, I would super encourage people, like, whatever you can do, you know, like, get something, get an interface, even if it's a cheap one, get something and get some experience. Like, and especially, you know, if you're going to be, whether or not you're going to end up doing any kind of, you know, more full on recording, it's good to have experience and know how to do that.
Yep.
And also, like you were saying, like, knowing how to get a sound and a sound that you want, like, before you go into a studio, I feel like it's super important that you, like, have some understanding, right? Because it's like, you're going to be in the studio, and then it's going to be like, how does this sound? How does that sound? And, like, again, like, if you have ownership over your thing, then you should want to be making those decisions. You know, whether or not you can set up the microphone and get it routed, doesn't matter. But, like, you should want to be able to be like, oh yeah, like, I like this, or I don't like this, and this is why.
Totally.
And
man, I have this memory of recording with Nookie Jones where I was like, I definitely 100% want to record on a ribbon microphone, because I had done everything on ribbons, and it was like that super loud high stuff. And I went and listened, and I was like, this doesn't sound right. I don't know why it doesn't sound right. I don't like how it sounds, you know? And he threw up a condenser, and we recorded both, and he flipped back and forth, and I went, oh, I actually like the large diaphragm condenser more on the, in my home studio. It's like I'm doing stuff that's probably not as doesn't have the same kind of velocity, right? It doesn't have the same kind of volume. And with that crazy volume, it was like I liked the sound of the condenser more. And so, if, you know, whatever, knowing that now, when I go into a studio, I'm like, let's just put it both, and then we can either blend them, or if it's something softer, I can use the ribbon. If it's something that's crazy loud and high, I can use the condenser.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's like, but it's like, yeah, you had that experience already. Like, you knew, like, oh, like ribbon mic, you know, like, you knew that you like that sound. And then it's like, and like that, you know, it's like a general horn, like the ribbon mic thing. And it's like, yeah, let's try it. And then it's like, okay, this isn't right.
Yep.
Yeah. As opposed to, like, you know, someone might just set up the ribbon mic, and then you play into it and you hear it and you're like, this doesn't sound good, but you don't really know what to say. And then you maybe let it go. Yep. And then you have a recording that you can't listen to for the rest of your life, because you're like, that sounds terrible.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Man, this is great. I've got a whole bunch of things I want to ask about. So talk a little more about shopping your record around to record labels. You know, it's like you didn't make it with this guy. You decided not to do this thing with this guy in Berlin. Who did you end up finding? How did you find them? How many record labels did you talk to and shop it around with in the process? It was a long process, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So so I would say it took like, oh, it's so wild to think back, because I'm like, when did we finish it? And I'm pretty sure we had it done before the pandemic. And we started working with a manager, and he just kept saying, like, don't put it out. Do not put this album out. Don't put it out. Because if you put it out, no one's going to hear it.
Wow.
And, and we were like, we want to put it out. He's like, don't put it out. Do not put it out. And I'm glad that we didn't put it out. Because if we would put it out in, like, early on in the pandemic, or, like, it just, like, it would have like just like this the single, like, it just, there's a chance because Sunshine was starting to get more plays, like there would have been some organic listenership possibly.
Yep.
But, like, there wouldn't have been any backing behind it at all. And so, yeah, anyway, so the Berlin thing is like, yeah, this isn't going to work out. And Joe reached out to this label called People's Potential Unlimited, which is based out of Washington, D.C. They have also like a record, like they sell records to. It's also a label through this thing called Ear Cave. But so it's PPU, and they're highly regarded, like, especially among, like, DJs and, like, record collectors. Super highly regarded. So what this dude does is he mostly re-releases older, like, 70s, 80s, like, R&B, funk, electronic music. Stuff that's, like, super B-side, but is dope. So killer. And, like, some of it's super lo-fi. Like,
yeah,
there's one that's, like, clearly, like, a cassette tape of this dude that's, like, these wild beats and this dude, like, rapping. And it's clearly on cassette tape. Like, yeah. But it sounds so sick. Like, I love it.
Yep.
So anyway, Joe just, like, sent him a message on Instagram, was like, I probably won't hear anything from this dude. And he was like, I love this. He's like, this is one of the coolest things I've heard in years. I want to be a part of this. And, which was super cool. And then around the same time, Acrophase Records, which we're signed to, reached out to us on Instagram because one of their artists had posted an Instagram story with Sunshine in it.
Wow.
And they were like, what is this? So they hit us up and were like, hey, we want to talk. And there was one other label too, some dude from somewhere in Europe that had hit us up about pressing the EP on vinyl. So anyway, we were talking with all these different people about things, but we had also sent a ton of emails, like tons of cold call emails, and heard back from some people. Some people didn't hear anything back from. Heard back from some, saying that like some of them weren't accepting stuff at the time or whatever.
Yeah.
It was interesting. So I don't know do you know Mac DeMarco?
No.
So Mac DeMarco is like very similar, like lo-fi psychedelic. He's more like the rock side of stuff. One of the most famous people for like the lo-fi bedroom, like psychedelic thing. And he has a label, and we sent them the stuff, like the Sunshine video first. And they were like super into it. And like it was like, apparently his mom runs some of it, which is like kind of hilarious. It's like she had emailed us back, and like we would always send stuff, and they'd be like, this is so great. Like, keep sending us stuff. Like, we're not putting out any, like, we're only releasing Mac's music, but like keep sending us stuff and whatever. So that was kind of a funny like relationship. Like,
Sure.
we would see that, like, yeah, anyway, so that was kind of funny. But
It
anyway,
also must
so
have
we,
felt good to get some validation maybe from some people too.
yeah,
right?
no, totally. And especially like from his team, it was like, because it's like you're sending out all these cold emails, which, you can do. And that's kind of part of it is like, try that and see.
Yeah.
But like, you don't really hear a lot of success stories of people like cold sending things to labels. Like, most of it is, again, like, it's like someone that was on the label posted our thing on Instagram, right? Or someone else who's on the label is like, this band is super tight, right? And then it's like, yeah, like an artist that the head of the label respects is like, you got to check these guys out, right? Like, that is how most things happen.
It's a who you know kind of thing, right?
No, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so anyway, Acrophase reached out to us, and basically like what it came down to is like we were trying to work out a thing where it was like Acrophase would handle all the digital, PPU would handle the physical, because PPU doesn't do like very much digital work. And the way that it has ended up shaking out is a little bit, or not a little bit, a very big bummer, kind of. But basically, what happened is, so PPU put out the song that we put out called "Come Inside" as a 12-inch single.
Yeah,
which is super sick. So we have that, which is awesome, and sounds like very PPU, like, which is cool. And they put that out, and then like a month after that, basically like he hit us up and was like, "Hey guys, like I don't think I'm gonna be able to do the full length or do the EP anymore because," which maybe you heard about, the vinyl got backed up like
yes,
insane because big artists like Taylor Swift and others, not only the pandemic but also because huge artists put in like swamped all of the pressing places.
Yep.
And so that screwed over indie artists all over the world, like totally.
Wow.
And so, including this dude's label. So like, he was like, yeah, like I think that I'm going to have to shift to not putting out new releases anymore. He's been doing this for like since the 90s.
Wow.
So we got on like right, like it was basically like what it came down to is like when we first talked to him, the first thing we should have done was been like, let's do this EP on vinyl, and that's the only like let's get this in now because everything was done. But we didn't think that this was going to be a thing. Anyway, so that happened, which is a huge bummer. But we still put out the album digitally with Acrophase, and we're in the process right now of kind of like figuring out like how can we now do the EP on vinyl, which is like tough. And it's like after the release, we're like the backups again. Apparently, like Adele just put in a thing that backed everything up again. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of how everything shook out, label wise, and yeah. So we're in a spot now, like trying to figure out the physical. But we put out some cassettes, and also PPU helped us distribute the Sunshine 45s that we made ourselves, and he distributed those like all over the world. So
wow, cool.
Which was super tight. So we'd like see him popping up like in Japan and Germany and
wow,
yeah, which is cool.
So you moved to LA middle of the pandemic, pre-vaccine, right? Like pre-vaccine, you moved. So that must have been like super nerve-wracking. You're picking up and you're moving to a new place in the middle of a pandemic. There's no vaccine. Maybe you're super locked down before that. You've experienced sort of meteoric rise in the Minneapolis scene up to that point. So why, I mean, obviously it was a good move. Why up and bounce to LA? And like, what's going through your mind during that time?
Yeah. So I had always told myself that I would not move to like LA or New York or something like that unless I had a reason. Like, like if it was like something was taking me there. And now that I live here, it's like, that is not, I would say to people watching, I don't know that I think was a little more out of like the security thing. And like I had a lot more stability in Minneapolis that I didn't want to let go of. Deeply, I didn't want to let go because as an artist, when you're making a living, it is constant that you're constantly worried about like, how are we going to make, like, because it's like at any point it could all, like, as we all found out, at any point it can dry up immediately.
Yep.
And it can be completely out of your control. And so, yeah, that was like, I had told myself that all the time. I was like, I'm not going to do that. And I always hear people like, oh, I want to move to LA. And it's like, oh, why do you want to do that? And now that I live here, it's like almost the opposite. And I wouldn't encourage like, obviously I had something to move here for,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't like no one here knew who we were outside of, there was like a handful of important people who knew who we were, which ended up turning into like a lot of things that are happening for us right now.
Yep.
But like for the most part, people had no idea who we were. So it wasn't like we were moving here like, oh, everyone's gonna be like, we love King Pari, like whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, so, but the difference is opportunity. That's the difference.
Yeah.
You move here, and there is no ceiling. Really, it's just like if things start to work in a certain way for you, like you can start to do some pretty cool things pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And things that like just literally could not have happened in Minneapolis.
What are some of those things that could not have happened in Minneapolis?
Yeah. So I think like a big thing, and like I love Minneapolis, and I'm very grateful for everything that happened for me there. And also like it is very difficult. Like there isn't really an industry like on the global sense or whatever.
Yep.
Like in Minneapolis, like you don't hear of, like, I think more, and there's like a lot of younger groups that I think that are starting to do a little bit more of this, but like you don't hear that often of like Minneapolis is a very like local thing. Like they talk about, it's like local, and which is great. Like, and it's like praised, like these local artists, right? They use the word local a lot.
Yep.
Which I think is good, and also like yo, like why can't we be talking about some of these things as national or international things?
Yep.
Right. Yep. And so again, like there's a ceiling. It's like you do so much and you keep hustling, and then it's like, okay, I've done a lot of things, but then it's like I moved to LA, and like, so we live super close to Stone's Throw Records.
Yeah.
And so basically like before we moved, we had, through someone who was signed to Stone's Throw that Joe had met when he was touring with Velvet Negroni, opening for Tame Impala.
Cool.
Which was super sick. And they did like Madison Square Garden and stuff. It's crazy. Joe met this dude, Chrome Canyon, and he Joe showed him the Sunshine video, and he was like, this is sick. I'm going to send this to Peanut Butter Wolf, who's the head of Stone's Throw. And he was like, I've sent him stuff. He's never responded, but I'll try. He sent it to him, and he responded and was like, wow, what is this? I want to know more about it. And so he was very not good at getting back to us, but like we were in an email thread with him. We're stoked. We're in this email thread with Peanut Butter Wolf, the head of Stone's Throw Records. It's crazy.
Yep.
And so we like sent him a message, didn't hear back for a while. And then like eventually it was like almost a year later after that, like he had sent us one email, and then like we had emailed him and they didn't hear anything. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess whatever. And then like later, like almost a year later, he was like, hey guys, sorry. Hey, sorry guys.
Like it's been a few days since you're sorry for the delay.
We're like, whoa, like he's back. And so he just sent us, he was like, hey, this like maybe unsolicited, whatever. And this was like, again, like my timeline's all over the place, but he was like, hey, like, I have some notes about, like, just a couple unsolicited notes about like the thing. And he was like, song order, he was like, I would do it this way. And then like one of the songs, he wanted to hear the mix differently. And then that was it. And then we're like, oh, cool. Like, thanks for the stuff. And it's like, do you like it enough to put it out? Like, but we decided, we were like, you know what? Like, what's more important to us is like I want to just establish a relationship with him. And like, we had already started working on a full length, and it was like, if he's into the full length, then we can talk more about that at that point. But at this point, I don't want to be groveling or like begging or like, like feeling like I'm like constantly contacting him. It's like, it's like in the end, like if he wanted to put out the EP enough, right? Yeah. Like he would have done it. Right.
Right.
And so it's like, cool. Like I'm not going to like continuously hit you up.
No, you want to go back to the lab. You want to do some more. I mean, that's it, right?
Yeah, I want to do something like clearly something connected with you, and I want to do something that like is gonna go beyond that. So anyway, so we moved here, and I didn't know. We're walking around the neighborhood. So we live in Highland Park. Walking around the neighborhood, and Joe's like, "Hey, this is Stone Store Records." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, what?" Like like this is like 2 blocks. Like we walked like 2 blocks. He's like, "Yeah, Stone Store. Like this is the Gold Line, the bar. Stone Store's upstairs." I was like, "What?" So anyway, we hit up because we saw that the Gold Line, which is Stone Store's bar, they were going to start doing DJ nights. And Joe DJs vinyl, and during the pandemic, he started showing me how to do it. And so we would like live stream over Instagram, and I just got like a ton of practice. Like we would go for like 6 hours at a time.
Wow.
And I got tons of practice doing it. Joe's really good in like beat matching. I don't know if you've ever tried beat matching on vinyl.
I've never tried it. I know about it. I've seen people do it.
So, you know, the idea of beat matching, right? It's like literally you have 2 things that are spinning, like it's vinyl, so it's not digital, so it's not, you know, any little movement can like change things up a little bit. And so like your job is to like make them match, and you have to use tempo control. It's like wild. It's very hard. But anyway, so Joe's really good at it, and we saw that the Gold Line was going to start doing this. So we just hit up Peanut Butter Wolf on Instagram. We're like, "Hey, we're going to be putting out a single in May. Can we come DJ and like kind of call it like a merry single release thing?" Fully expecting him to say no. Right? Like, no, absolutely not. And he was like, "Yeah, like if we're open around then, sure." And we're like, "What?" It's like he didn't even ask like, "So like do you guys like there was no question about, you know," and it's like, "Okay, like yeah, sure, if you guys want to do it, cool." Okay. So we ended up going one day before the thing was booked, went and met him because he was there. He's like there a lot, and we went there and met him, and which was cool to like get to say hi. And then it was like, "Hey, we're the guys from King Pari," and like took him a second. You know, at first it was like, "Oh, he doesn't even know who we are. Like this is super embarrassing." And then he realized who we were, and then it was like, you know, and he's like a little hard to read, but like now I know him better, so it's like chill. But like, you know, so it's like, oh, okay, cool. And then anyway, so we ended up doing the DJ night, and he was there. He like showed up, and then he was like, he came up and was like, "Hey, like I want to hear you guys on the system." I was like, "What?" It's like, "Oh, he wants us to play King Pari." And so I put on Come Inside, and he came running over. He's like, "This is cool, but like I want to hear that other stuff." And I was like, "Oh, he wants to hear Sunshine."
Yeah.
So I put on Sunshine, and he came running over. He's like, "This is my shit." And I was like, "Oh, what is going on?"
Yes.
Like, I'm like freaking out. I'm like, "What? Like what?" And so he's like, "Yeah, like this is it." He's like, "I need one of these." So like we gave him one and like left one for the bar. And anyway, so like we spun the whole night, and it was like killer. Like the bar was packed. This was like end of May. And so like, you know, everyone was starting to get vaccinated. This is like when like everyone felt invincible.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, we can do normal stuff. And so anyway, so we did this night. And it was killer, like popping, like so like sick. One of the funnest nights of my life, like for sure.
Wow.
And at the Gold Line. So anyway, did this. I didn't know that. So this is my first time DJing vinyl in public ever. Come to find out that people turn down spinning records at the Gold Line because they're scared. People who are like legitimate DJs are too scared to DJ there.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't know. Like, it was so much better that I went into it. Like, I don't know. Like,
yeah.
You just, and the other thing is like, he has his part of his collection, Peanut Butter Wolf's collection, is in the bar. So you spin his records, which I was also terrified about because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to know any of this stuff. But it actually makes it way cooler because it's like everything's color number coordinated.
Yep.
So you like pick through and you just like look at a record. You're like, oh, this is like world music. This seems sick. And you like put it on, you cue everything before you play it. And you just find something that's like, obviously everything in there is going to be fire. And so like,
right.
Yeah, anyway. But
that's cool.
Yeah, but now, so we've done that. Now I've done that probably 4 or 5 times. Joe's done it more times than I have.
Yep.
And yeah, so it's like not only, so it's like we moved here and then within like a few months, like got super connected with Peanut Butter Wolf.
Yep.
Who's the head, like, or and like everyone at Stone's Throw, right? Which outside of emails or whatever, phone calls maybe, could not have happened.
Right.
Ever in Minneapolis.
Yep.
And like within months, that's happening. And then like, yeah, like Peanut Butter Wolf's doing a remix of one of our songs.
Wow.
We went to the studio, hung out with him.
No shit.
Man, he was telling us stories about like MF Doom and Dilla and like,
wow.
so we went over to the studio, hung out with him. And yeah, and now it's like the full length is getting close to being done and like pretty close to a spot where like I want to show it to him and like, you know, and like I think he's really going to connect with it. But whether or not he ends up putting it out, like I feel like we're in a position now where it's like now we're friends with everybody over there.
Yep.
And like friends with other people at other labels and like, you know, it's like I feel like things have progressed in a larger scale sense.
Yeah. Exponentially too.
Exponentially faster.
Yeah.
Than they did in Minneapolis.
Right.
And like, and again, like, you know, like so many cool things and awesome like things locally to Minneapolis that I did in Minneapolis. But like thinking like bigger scale, it's like now we have a booking agent who's an awesome booking agent who is this dude, Jonathan Matson, who is in this band called the Matson 2. And he's a professional musician who makes music that's very similar to ours. He's from San Diego. He loves our music and he's our booking agent now. So it's like, and now he's on a big agency. Like he got us a month and a half before he joined this big agency. And so now it's like, and he's like throwing us tons of dates now. And it's like, again, like just isn't the infrastructure or like the relationships between people.
Right.
And yeah, and obviously it's like a crazy time. Like when we moved, it was right before the huge peak in LA in COVID. And, so everything was shut down, like completely shut down basically for like 3 months. So that was weird. You know, it's like, we moved here, but it was weird, but cool. Cause it was like, we got to know the neighborhood and it didn't feel like we were in a huge, massive city. It was like, we weren't exploring so much. It was like, we just kind of walked around the neighborhood, got to know people in the neighborhood. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's been a trip. It's been a trip being here.
So you mentioned a full length, like, you know, just to wrap it up a little bit, what can we expect, with a full length record from King Pari? What do you guys, you know, like, I guess, is it the same type of stuff that you have on the Mary EP? Are you doing something different? Are you taking, you know, things that you're learning from record label owners who've given you feedback and trying to incorporate some of that in this new music?
Yeah. So, the full length it's a combination of things. There's a lot. So there on the full length, there is more rock, psych rock. There's like, there's one song. Okay. There's more rock and then like a lot of Minneapolis, like some of it's like Minneapolis sound rock.
Yep.
Like all of it is Minneapolis sound rock. Like it's like funk, but with Joe, like just like opening up a lot more.
Cool.
On a couple things. And then, yeah, some stuff that's just like straight up funky. Everything, it's the King Pari thing is like everything is like, there's always something that's like a little weird, you know, like something that's like a little like, cause the thing like Joe he's not, when he's creating, he's not thinking theoretically at all. He's just like, go. Like he plugs in and goes. And like, then I sit down after the fact and I'll like figure out what is going on. And I'm like, dude, some of this stuff is like wild.
Yeah.
Like if you really analyze what's going on, it's like, dude, like wild. Like I'm like coming up with melodies, you know, and I'm like, why am I having a hard, I'm like, oh yeah. Cause like he has like this ostinato thing happening, you know, at the same time that this other thing is happening and they sound like they work together, but like creating melodies over this is like wild, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, so anyway, there's a lot of that. And then like, yeah, like I'd say like sonically, it feels like a progression, which is cool. Like there's some stuff that sounds pretty similar, but overall it's like, even though it's all still lo-fi, I feel like it's like a little more like there's a lot more low end on some of this stuff, like thick stuff, which makes sense for what it is. Yeah. But all like funky, weird, fun, like, yeah, I'm super stoked. Like some of the stuff I'm like, this is the best music I've ever made.
Oh man, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So if people listening want to find King Pari, where's the best place?
So Instagram, that's like where we update most of the things on Instagram. TikTok, come at us, find us on TikTok, we're out there. We don't have a Twitter.
Yeah.
Just don't have one.
Yep.
Don't have the time or something. And you can, Facebook too, but we don't post on Facebook. So pretty much Instagram, and then YouTube.
Right.
And
because you have all those animations for all those. Are you doing videos for every song on the full length too?
Probably not for every song, and we're not going to do animations this time.
Okay.
We're gonna do. We want to like switch. We want to switch some of that stuff up. That was all very fun and like felt like a world. Like it was like a package and like a world that it was put in.
Yep.
And the new stuff is like we have like immediate ideas for like music videos and like have real people in them. But and then like streaming, all that streaming spot like Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Napster.
Get on that Napster. Wait, no, don't get on Napster. Don't torrent the music.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, man. This was super awesome. It was great to hear from you and learn about what you're doing. And I think people get a lot out of this conversation. This is really cool to hear how you've been interfacing with labels and the scene in LA. And I'm really happy that you got all that going on, man. It's really cool.
Yeah, thank you, dude. Thank you,
man. Great talking to you.
Yep.